Welcome to Monk's Temple. There is a story they tell about a master potter in a small village. This potter was known throughout the region for the incredible beauty of his bowls and vases. People would travel for days just to watch him work. One day, a young man came to the potter and asked to become his apprentice. He wanted to learn the secrets of turning ordinary clay into something so elegant. The master agreed, and on the first morning, he led the young man to the pottery shed. He pointed to a large mound of clay in the corner and said, "Your work begins there. You will take that clay and you will knead it. You will push it, fold it, and press it. You will remove every tiny stone, every impurity, every air bubble. That is your task for today." The young man looked at the mound of clay. Then he looked at the master's finished pots with their perfect symmetry. He felt a wave of disappointment. He had come to learn about beauty, about the profound mystery of creation. And the master was asking him to play in the mud. But he did as he was told. He kneaded the clay all morning, his arms aching. He found tiny stones and flicked them away. He pressed out air bubbles that popped silently under his palms. By the end of the day, the clay was smoother, more alive. The master came in, ran his hand over the surface, nodded, and said, "Tomorrow, you will do it again." The young man was confused. "Again? But I already did this. The clay is ready." The master looked at him with kind eyes. "The clay is never ready," he said. "It is always becoming ready. The work you did today removed the visible stones. Tomorrow, you will remove the stones you missed. The day after, you will remove the stones you cannot yet see. And one day, when the clay offers no resistance to your touch, then you will be ready to learn how to make a pot." This is where we begin. Not with grand philosophies or mystical experiences. We begin with the clay. We begin with the unglamorous work of preparing the ground. We begin with wisdom for the rest of us. Wisdom for those who know they have stones to remove. There are two basic skills that the Buddha placed at the foundation of his entire teaching. The first is this: when your mind leans toward an action that you know will lead to harm, you must learn how to talk yourself out of it. The second is the opposite. When your mind recoils from an action that you know will lead to genuine well-being, you must learn how to talk yourself into it. That's it. Learning to say no to what diminishes you. Learning to say yes to what frees you. These sound simple. But if they were easy, we would all be enlightened. The mind is not a single thing. It is a crowded room full of voices, each with its own agenda. I once worked with a man named David. David was a software engineer, brilliant with code, but lost when it came to his own habits. His struggle was with what he called the late-night spiral. Every evening around 10 o'clock, he would tell himself he was going to bed. He would brush his teeth, turn down the covers, and then pick up his phone. Just for a moment, he would tell himself. And then it would be midnight. He would be watching videos he didn't care about. A voice in his head would say, "Just one more. You deserve to relax." The next morning, he would wake exhausted and filled with self-loathing. David said to me, "I feel like two different people. The daytime David is responsible. The nighttime David is a zombie. And the zombie always wins." I told him, "The zombie wins because you don't realize you're in a negotiation. You think the voice that wants to scroll is you. But it's not you. It's a visitor. And visitors can be spoken to. This is the first insight of basic wisdom. The voices in your head are not commands. They are suggestions. They are options on a menu. And you, the awareness that notices the voices, are the one who gets to choose. The Buddha taught that the mind is a stream of events. Within that stream, there are wholesome voices and unwholesome voices. Voices of greed and voices of generosity. The practice is not to kill the unwholesome voices. It is to learn to recognize them, to see through their arguments, and to choose the wiser ones. David's nighttime voice said, "You're tired. This is rest." But was it rest? Did he feel rested after scrolling? No. He felt depleted. The voice was lying. It was promising rest and delivering exhaustion. The next time the voice spoke, he could respond. "You say this will rest me. But I've run this experiment hundreds of times. The data is clear. This exhausts me. Tonight, I'm trying something else." He didn't have to fight the voice. He just had to stop believing it. In that moment of disbelief, a tiny space opened up. A space of freedom. In that space, he could choose differently. This is the fundamental work. This is kneading the clay. It is not glamorous. But it is the foundation. Because a mind that cannot say no to its own harmful impulses is not free. And a mind that cannot say yes to its own well-being is not yet wise. If you are finding value in these teachings and want to support us in creating more content, please take a moment to subscribe to the Monk's Temple channel. It's a small habit, but it helps these ancient insights reach more people who are ready to knead their own clay. Let us return to the clay. The story of the potter's apprentice contains a truth we often miss. The apprentice wanted to skip ahead, to go straight to the wheel, straight to the beautiful finished product. But the master knew that the quality of the finished pot depends entirely on the quality of the prepared clay. If there are stones in the clay, the pot will crack in the firing. If there are air bubbles, the pot will explode in the kiln. All the skill in the world cannot save a pot made from poorly prepared clay. Your mind is that clay. The stones and air bubbles are the unexamined habits, the automatic reactions, the voices you have never learned to question. You can meditate for hours. You can study profound texts. But if you have not done the basic work of preparing the ground, your practice will crack under pressure. It will explode when life turns up the heat. This is why the Buddha spent so much time teaching people how to deal with ordinary moments. He knew that enlightenment does not happen in some special realm. It happens right here. It happens when you choose not to say that angry word. It happens when you choose to meditate instead of staying in bed. It happens in small, invisible choices that no one else sees. There is a second story about a woman named Elena who came to the temple many years ago. Elena was a concert pianist. She had performed in beautiful concert halls around the world. But she came to see me because she had lost the joy of playing. She said, "When I was a child, I loved the piano. I would sit for hours just exploring sounds. But now, every time I sit down to play, I hear a voice. It criticizes everything. That passage was too slow. That note was slightly flat. The audience will notice. You're not as good as you used to be." The voice never stops. I'm exhausted. I asked her, "When you hear that voice, what do you do?" She said, I try to argue with it. I try to prove it wrong by playing better. But it only gets louder. This is a common mistake. We think the way to deal with a difficult voice is to argue with it, to defeat it. But arguing with a voice only gives it more energy. It is like fighting with a shadow. You cannot win because there is nothing there to hit. The Buddha had a different approach. He taught that we should learn to see these voices not as enemies to be defeated, but as visitors to be observed. They come. They stay for a while. And then, if we do not feed them with our attention, they leave on their own. I said to Elena, the next time the critical voice speaks, do not argue. Do not try to play better. Just notice it. Say to yourself, ah, there is the voice of criticism again. Hello, old friend. I see you. Then bring your attention back to the physical sensation of your fingers on the keys. Bring your attention back to the vibration of the sound in your ears. Let the voice talk. It can say whatever it wants. You do not have to believe it. You just have to stop feeding it. Elena looked skeptical. But she agreed to try. A few months later, she wrote me a letter. She said the first few times she tried this, the voice got louder, as if it was angry at being ignored. But she persisted. She kept bringing her attention back to her fingers, back to the sound. Slowly, the voice began to fade. It did not disappear completely. It still shows up from time to time. But it no longer controls her. It no longer steals her joy. She wrote, I realized something. The voice was never really about the music. It was about fear. It was afraid of being judged. And all those years, I thought I had to defeat the fear before I could play. But the opposite was true. I had to play, and let the fear come along for the ride. I had to stop making the fear the center of the show. This is a profound insight. The voices in your mind are not the problem. The problem is that you make them the center of the show. You give them the microphone. The practice is not to silence the voices. The practice is to shift your attention to something else. This is why the Buddha placed so much emphasis on mindfulness of the body. The body is always here. The breath is always flowing. When you bring your attention to the body, you are not arguing with the voices. You are simply choosing a different channel. You are changing the subject. The voices need your attention to survive. They are like plants that need water. When you stop watering them, they begin to wilt. They do not die overnight. It takes time. But eventually, they lose their power to compel you. This is the second basic wisdom. The first wisdom was learning to recognize that the voices are not you. The second wisdom is learning to shift your attention away from them and onto something more stable, more grounding. The breath is the perfect tool for this. It is always with you. It has no opinions. It does not criticize. It just breathes. So the next time you hear a voice that is unhelpful, try this. Do not argue. Do not fight. Just notice it. Say, I see you. Then gently bring your attention to your breath. Feel the air moving in and out. Feel the rise and fall of your chest. Stay with that for a few moments. The voice may continue. That is fine. You are no longer feeding it. You are simply breathing. This is the work. This is kneading the clay. It is small. It is simple. And it is the most powerful thing you can do. There is a third story I want to share with you. It is about a man named Marcus who worked as a firefighter in a busy city. Marcus had seen things most of us cannot imagine. He had walked into burning buildings. He had pulled people from car wrecks. He had held the hands of the dying. And for many years, he carried these experiences inside him without ever speaking about them. When Marcus came to the temple, he was not looking for spiritual insights. He was looking for sleep. He had not slept through the night in over 3 years. Every night, around 2 in the morning, he would wake up with his heart pounding, his body drenched in sweat. The images would come. The sounds would come. And he could not make them stop. He said to me, "I've tried everything. I've tried medication. I've tried therapy. I've tried whiskey. Nothing works. The images come anyway. They own me." I asked him, "When the images come, what do you do?" He said, "I fight them. I try to push them away. I tell myself they're not real. I tell myself they're in the past. But the more I push, the stronger they get. It's like trying to hold a beach ball underwater. The moment I relax, it explodes back to the surface. This is the paradox of the human mind. What you resist persists. What you fight, you feed." The Buddha understood this completely. He taught that the way to be free of a thought is not to push it away. The way to be free is to learn to look at it differently. To see it as just a thought. Just an event in the mind. No more, no less. I said to Marcus, "Tonight, when the images come, do not fight them. Do not try to push them away. Instead, do something counterintuitive. Invite them in. Say to yourself, 'I see you. You are welcome here. Stay as long as you like.' And then, instead of getting lost in the story of the images, just watch them. Watch them like you are watching a movie. Notice the colors. Notice the sounds. Notice how they feel in your body. But do not get involved in the plot." Marcus looked at me like I was insane. "You want me to invite the nightmares in? You want me to welcome them?" I said, "I want you to stop treating them as enemies. Because enemies require you to fight. And fighting is exhausting. What if they are not enemies? What if they are just visitors? And what if visitors, when treated with kindness and curiosity, eventually decide to leave on their own?" He agreed to try. Not because he believed me, but because he was desperate. A few weeks later, he came back. He looked different. Softer. He said the first few nights were strange. When he stopped fighting, the images seemed to get bigger at first, as if they were testing him. But he kept watching. He kept breathing. He kept saying, "You are welcome here." And then something shifted. The images began to lose their charge. They became less vivid. They became less frightening. They were still there, but they no longer owned him. They were just pictures in his mind. Just old recordings playing on a screen. And after a while, they started coming less often. And then, for the first time in years, he slept through the night. Marcus discovered something the Buddha taught 2,500 years ago. The mind's suffering comes not from the thoughts themselves, but from our relationship to them. When you believe a thought, you are trapped inside it. When you fight a thought, you are still trapped, just on the opposite side. But when you can simply observe a thought, without belief and without resistance, you are free. The thought may still be there, but you are no longer in its prison. This is the third basic wisdom. The first was recognizing that the voices in your head are not you. The second was learning to shift your attention to the body and breath. The third is learning to observe thoughts without getting involved in their stories. Think of it like sitting on the bank of a wide river. The river flows past you constantly. Logs float by. Branches float by. Leaves float by. Sometimes a dead animal floats by. You do not jump into the river to fight the dead animal. You do not run along the bank chasing every log. You just sit. You watch. You let the river flow. Your mind is that river. Thoughts are just things floating by on the current. You do not have to jump in. You do not have to chase them. You do not have to push them away. You can just sit on the bank and watch. This is mindfulness. This is the beginning of true freedom. But here is what makes this difficult. We have spent our entire lives jumping into the river. We have spent our entire lives believing that every thought that appears is important, is true, is us. We have trained ourselves to get involved. So when we first try to just sit on the bank, it feels wrong. It feels like we are being lazy or irresponsible. The river is full of things that seem to demand our attention. This is where the breath becomes your anchor. When you feel yourself being pulled into the river, when a thought grabs you and starts to drag you under, you can return to the breath. The breath is like a heavy stone on the bank. It keeps you grounded. It keeps you sitting. It reminds you that you are the observer, not the river. Marcus learned this. He learned that the images from his past were just images. They were not commands. They were not threats. They were just old mental events arising and passing away. And when he stopped treating them as enemies, they stopped acting like enemies. They became neutral. They became harmless. This is the power of basic wisdom. It does not require years of study. It does not require a high IQ. It requires only the willingness to sit on the bank and watch the river flow. It requires the willingness to stop fighting and start observing. And that willingness is available to you right now, in this very moment. There is a fourth story I want to tell you. It is about a woman named Priya who ran a small bakery in the city. Priya woke every morning at 3:30 to begin her work. She mixed dough, shaped loaves, and tended the ovens while the rest of the city slept. Her bread was famous. People lined up outside her shop before sunrise to buy it while it was still warm. When Priya came to the temple, she was not struggling with trauma or anxiety. She was struggling with boredom. She said, "Every morning is the same. I mix the same ingredients. I shape the same loaves. I bake them at the same temperature. I have done this thousands of times. And I am so bored I could scream. I love my customers. I love that they love my bread. But the work itself feels like a prison." I asked her, "When you are mixing the dough, where is your mind?" She said, "It's everywhere except there. I'm thinking about what I'll do after work. I'm thinking about conversations I had yesterday. I'm thinking about what I want to say to my husband tonight. I'm anywhere but in that bakery." This is the human condition. We are almost never where we are. Our bodies are in one place, but our minds are somewhere else entirely. We are eating dinner while planning breakfast. We are walking outside while scrolling on our phones. We are talking to a friend while thinking about an email we need to send. We are always somewhere else. And this constant elsewhereness is a major source of our suffering. Because when you are never where you are never fully alive. You are always half here, half gone. You are always reaching for a future that never quite arrives or ruminating on a past that is already finished. The Buddha called this condition mindfulness muddled. He said that most people live their lives like fish out of water, flopping and gasping, always looking for a way back to some imaginary ocean. They never rest in the water they are in right now. I said to Priya, the problem is not the repetition. The problem is that you are fighting the repetition. You want every morning to be different, exciting, new. But mornings are not new. They are the same. That is what mornings do. The question is not how to make the morning different. The question is how to be fully present for the morning exactly as it is. She said, but how do I do that? How do I get excited about something I've done 10,000 times? I said, you don't need excitement. You need attention. Excitement is a feeling that comes and goes. It is not reliable. But attention is a skill you can develop. You can learn to bring your full awareness to the most ordinary task. And when you do, something remarkable happens. The ordinary becomes extraordinary. Not because it has changed, but because you have changed. I gave her a small practice. I said, tomorrow morning, when you mix the dough, do not think about anything else. Just feel the dough. Feel its temperature. Feel its texture. Notice how it changes as you knead it. Notice the sound it makes. Notice the smell. Be completely with the dough. If your mind wanders, gently bring it back. No judgment. Just return to the dough. She agreed to try. A few weeks later, she came back to the temple. She was smiling. She said, the first few days were hard. My mind kept running away. But I kept bringing it back. And then something shifted. I started noticing things I had never noticed before. The way the dough changes as the gluten develops. The way the temperature of the room affects the fermentation. The way the bread sounds different when it is perfectly baked. It was like I had been blind and suddenly I could see. She said, I'm not bored anymore. I'm not excited either. It's something else. It's like the work has become a meditation. I look forward to those early morning hours now. They are mine. Just me and the dough. It's peaceful. Priya discovered something profound. The quality of your life is not determined by what you do. It is determined by how present you are while you are doing it. You can do the most exciting thing in the world while being miserable because your mind is somewhere else. You can do the most repetitive thing in the world while being peaceful because your mind is right there with the task. This is the fourth basic wisdom. The first was recognizing the voices are not you. The second was shifting attention to the body. The third was observing thoughts without getting involved. The fourth is learning to bring full attention to whatever you are doing, no matter how ordinary. The Buddha said there is a direct path to liberation. It is called the Four Foundations of Mindfulness. And the first foundation is mindfulness of the body. Being present with the breath. Being present with your posture. Being present with your actions. Washing the dishes like washing the dishes. Walking like walking. Eating like eating. Being where you are. Most people think meditation is something you do on a cushion. But the cushion is just training. The real meditation is life itself. The real meditation is the dough. The real meditation is the dishwater. The real meditation is the 33rd time you have swept this same floor. When you learn to be fully present for the ordinary moments stop being ordinary. They become portals. They become doorways into a different way of being. You stop living in your head and start living in your life. And that is the only place real peace can ever be found. There is a fifth story I want to share with you. It is about a man named James who worked as a high school teacher. James loved his students. He loved the moment when a young person's eyes would light up with understanding. But he was burning out. The administrative demands, the parent meetings, the endless grading, it was crushing him. He came to the temple and said, "I go home every day completely drained. I have nothing left for my own family. I love teaching, but teaching is killing me." I asked him, "What drains you most?" He thought for a moment. "It's the transitions. Between classes, I have 5 minutes. 5 minutes to reset, to gather my materials, to prepare for the next group. But those 5 minutes are not mine. My mind is still stuck in the last class. I'm still thinking about the student who was acting out, the question I didn't answer well, the thing I wish I had said differently. Then the next class walks in, and I'm not ready for them. By the end of the day, I've been somewhere else for 7 hours, and I'm exhausted." This is a profound observation. James was not exhausted by his work. He was exhausted by his inability to be present for his work. He was carrying the last class into the next class. He was carrying yesterday into today. His mind was a crowded room with no exits, and every visitor from the past was still there demanding attention. The Buddha had a teaching about this. He said the wise person learns to leave each moment behind. Not in a forgetful way, but in a way that is complete. When one thing is finished, it is truly finished. You do not carry it into the next thing. You close the door. You take a breath. And then you open the next door. I said to James, "Let me teach you a small practice. It is called the art of the comma. In writing, a comma is a pause. It separates things while connecting them. Your life needs commas. Between each class, between each task, between each conversation, you need a pause. A moment where you do nothing but breathe. A moment where you let the last thing go so you can be fully available for the next thing." He said, "But I only have 5 minutes. That's not enough time to do anything meaningful." I said, "It is enough time to do the most important thing there is. It is enough time to arrive. Right now, you spend those 5 minutes stuck in the past, wrestling with ghosts. I am asking you to spend them arriving in the present, greeting what is actually here. That is all. Just arrive." I gave him this simple instruction. At the end of each class, as the students filed out, he was to stand still for 3 breaths. Just 3. Not 5 minutes of meditation. Not a long ritual. Just 3 conscious breaths. He was to feel his feet on the floor. He was to feel the air moving in and out of his body. He was to say silently to himself, "That class is done. I am here now. This is a new moment." Then, after those 3 breaths, he could gather his materials and prepare for the next class. He agreed to try, though he was skeptical. 3 breaths seemed too small to make any real difference. A month later, he came back to the temple. He looked different. Lighter. Softer around the eyes. He said, "It sounds so small. 3 breaths. I almost didn't bother. But it changed everything." He explained, "At first, I would forget. I would be halfway through the 5 minutes, already thinking about the next lesson, before I remembered to breathe. But I kept trying. Slowly, it became a habit. And something happened that I did not expect. Those 3 breaths did not just separate the classes. They changed the quality of the classes themselves." He said, "I started teaching each class as if it was the only class. I stopped bringing the last one in. I stopped worrying about the next one. I was just there, with those students, in that moment. And the teaching got better. The students felt it. They were more engaged. I was more patient. I was more present. And the exhaustion faded. I realized I was not exhausted by the work. I was exhausted by the carrying. Once I stopped carrying everything, the work itself became lighter." James discovered the power of the pause. He discovered that between every moment and the next, there is a tiny space. A gap. Most of us rush right through that gap without ever noticing it. We live our lives as one long, blurry stream of unfinished business. But if you learn to find that gap, to rest in it even for a single breath, everything changes. The Buddha called this mindfulness of the present moment. He said the past is already gone. It cannot be changed. The future has not yet arrived. It cannot be controlled. The only moment you ever truly have is this one. Right here. Right now. And if you miss this moment because you are thinking about the last one or worrying about the next one, you have missed your life. Think about it. When was the last time you were completely somewhere? Completely with a person, with a task, with a meal? For most of us, it has been a long time. We are always half here, half there. And this constant fragmentation is exhausting. It drains our energy. It prevents us from ever feeling fully alive. This is the 5th basic wisdom. Learning to pause. Learning to close the door on what is finished. Learning to arrive fully for what is next. It is simple. It is small. It requires only 3 breaths between tasks. But it is revolutionary because it brings you back to the only place you can ever truly live, the present moment. James now teaches this practice to his students. At the beginning of each class, he has them take 3 breaths together. At the end, they take 3 breaths together. He says it has transformed his classroom. The students are calmer. They are more focused. They are learning not just history, but how to be present for their own lives. And that, in the end, is the only thing worth teaching. There is a 6th story I want to share with you. It is about a woman named Helen who worked as a nurse in a large hospital. Helen had been a nurse for 30 years. She had seen thousands of patients come and go. She had held the hands of the dying. She had celebrated with the newborn's parents. She was good at her job, respected by her colleagues, loved by her patients. But Helen had a secret. She was angry. Not at anyone in particular. Just angry at everything. The traffic on the way to work made her furious. The slow elevator made her want to punch the wall. A colleague asking a simple question would ignite a fire in her chest. She lived with a constant low-grade irritation that could flare into rage at any moment. When she came to the temple, she said, "I don't understand it. I have a good life. I help people. I'm appreciated. But I'm angry all the time. It's like there's a pot of water inside me that's always boiling. The smallest thing makes it spill over." I asked her, "When did this begin?" She thought for a long time. "I don't know. It's been building for years. Maybe decades. It's like I've been collecting little irritations and storing them somewhere. And now that somewhere is full, there's no more room. So every new irritation just explodes." This is a common condition. We think anger is about the thing that triggers it. The traffic. The slow elevator. The stupid question. But anger is rarely about the trigger. The trigger is just the last straw. The real anger is the accumulated weight of years of unprocessed frustrations, unspoken resentments, unmet expectations. We carry them all inside us, and then one day, we run out of room. The Buddha had a teaching about this. He compared the mind to a cup of water mixed with mud. If you let the cup sit still, the mud settles to the bottom and the water becomes clear. But if you keep shaking the cup, the water stays muddy. Most of us spend our lives shaking the cup. We keep stirring up the mud with our thoughts, our worries, our resentments. And then we wonder why we can never see clearly. I said to Helen, "The anger you feel is the mud that has never been allowed to settle. You have been shaking the cup for 30 years. Of course it's muddy. The question is not how to get rid of the mud. The question is how to stop shaking the cup." She said, "But how do I stop shaking? The world keeps shaking me. The traffic, the hospital, the people, they won't leave me alone." I said, "The world will always shake. That is what the world does. But you do not have to shake with it. You can learn to be still inside the shaking. You can learn to let the mud settle even while the cup is being jostled." I gave her a practice. I said, "Every time you feel the anger rising, pause. Do not act on it. Do not speak. Do not clench your fist. Just pause. Then bring your attention to your breath. Feel the air going in and out. Feel your feet on the floor. Let the anger be there. Do not fight it. Do not feed it. Just let it be there while you breathe. The anger is like a wave. It rises, it peaks, and then it falls. Your job is not to stop the wave. Your job is to surf it." She agreed to try. A few months later, she sent me a letter. She said the first few weeks were hard. The anger was so strong that pausing felt impossible. But she kept trying. She kept coming back to her breath. And slowly, something shifted. The waves of anger became smaller. They became less frequent. They no longer controlled her. She wrote, "I realized something. The anger was never about the traffic or the elevator. It was about me. It was about a lifetime of not paying attention to my own heart. I was shaking the cup, and I didn't even know I was doing it. Now, when I feel the anger rising, I stop. I breathe. And most of the time, the wave passes without crashing. I am learning to surf." Helen discovered the sixth basic wisdom. Anger is not an enemy to be defeated. It is a signal to be understood. It tells you that something is off, that some mud needs attention. But you cannot see what needs attention while you are shaking the cup. You have to let it settle first. You have to be still. And in that stillness, clarity comes. The Buddha said that a mind without anger is like a clear pool. You can see all the way to the bottom. You can see the fish swimming, the stones resting, the plants growing. You can see things as they actually are. But a mind full of anger is like a stormy sea. You cannot see anything. You can only feel the waves crashing against you. The practice is simple. When anger comes, do not grab it. Do not act on it. Just breathe. Let it rise. Let it fall. And in the space between the waves, you will find a stillness that has been there all along. There is a seventh story I want to share with you. It is about a man named Thomas who ran a small construction company. Thomas was good with his hands. He could build anything. A house, a barn, a piece of furniture. He took raw materials and turned them into things that lasted. But Thomas had a problem. He could never finish anything. He would start a project with enthusiasm. He would draw plans, buy materials, begin the work. But somewhere in the middle, something would happen. He would lose interest. He would get distracted by a new idea. He would leave the first project half finished and start another. His workshop was full of incomplete things. A half-built table. A chair with 3 legs. A cabinet with no doors. When Thomas came to the temple, he said, "I don't know what's wrong with me. I have all these ideas. I have all these skills. But I can't seem to complete anything. I get to the middle and I just stop." I asked him, "What happens in the middle? What do you feel?" He thought for a moment. "It's like the excitement wears off. At the beginning, everything is new and interesting. I can see the finished thing in my mind. It's perfect. But in the middle, it's just work. It's the same thing over and over. Sanding the same piece of wood. Cutting the same joint. It's boring. And then a new idea comes, and that new idea is exciting again. So I go there." This is a common pattern. We are addicted to the new. The beginning of anything is full of dopamine. The first kiss, the first day of a new job, the first pages of a new book. But the middle is where real life happens. The middle is where there is no novelty, only repetition. And repetition feels like death to a mind addicted to stimulation. The Buddha had a teaching about this. He said the middle is where the path actually is. The beginning is easy. The end is rewarding. But the middle is where you walk. Step after step after step. And most people never learn to walk in the middle because they are always running back to the start. I said to Thomas, the problem is not that you lose interest. The problem is that you believe interest is necessary. You think you need to feel excited to do the work. But excitement is a feeling. It comes and goes. It is not reliable. What is reliable is commitment. What is reliable is showing up even when you don't feel like it. He said, but how do I keep going when I'm bored? I said, you change your relationship to boredom. You stop seeing it as a problem and start seeing it as a teacher. Boredom is not the absence of interest. Boredom is the presence of resistance. Something in you does not want to be here, doing this. And that something is worth investigating. I gave him a practice. The next time you are in the middle of a project and you feel the urge to stop, do not stop. Do not switch to something new. Just stay. Stay with the boredom. Stay with the resistance. And while you stay, keep working. Keep sanding. Keep cutting. Let the boredom be there. But do not let it stop your hands. He agreed to try. A few months later, he came back. He said, it was hard at first. Really hard. My mind would scream at me to stop. It would offer me 1,000 reasons why this project was stupid, why I should start something better. But I kept working. I kept sanding. And something happened. He said, the boredom didn't go away. But it changed. It became peaceful. There was something calming about just doing the work without needing to be excited. Just moving my hands. Just watching the wood take shape. It became like a meditation. He said, I finished the table. Then I finished the chair. Then I finished the cabinet. And when I looked at them, I felt something I had never felt before. I felt proud. Not because they were perfect. They weren't. But because I stayed. I finished. Thomas discovered the 7th basic wisdom. The middle is where the treasure is. Not at the beginning, with its false excitement. Not at the end, with its brief satisfaction. But in the middle. In the long, slow, repetitive middle. That is where you learn who you really are. That is where you build something real. The middle teaches you patience. It teaches you perseverance. It teaches you that you are stronger than your moods. A person who can only act when they feel like it is a slave. A person who can act regardless of how they feel is free. The Buddha said that a person who can stay in the middle is like a mountain. The mountain does not get excited when the sun shines. It does not get depressed when the rain falls. It just sits. It just is. And because it does not move, it becomes solid. It becomes reliable. It becomes a place where others can find shelter. This is what the middle offers you. Not excitement. Not reward. Just the quiet dignity of showing up, again and again, until the work is done. And in that showing up, you discover that you are not just the weather of your moods. You are the mountain itself. There is an 8th story I want to share with you. It is about a woman named Patricia who worked as a librarian. Patricia loved books. She loved the smell of old pages, the quiet of the reading room, the way a story could transport you somewhere else. She spent her days surrounded by words, helping others find the stories they needed. But Patricia had a secret fear. She was terrified of speaking in public. At work, she was fine. One-on-one, she was warm and articulate. But if she had to speak in front of more than a few people, something would happen. Her throat would close up. Her hands would shake. Her mind would go completely blank. She had avoided promotions, turned down opportunities, all because of this fear. When she came to the temple, she said, "I know it's irrational. I know no one is going to hurt me. But my body doesn't know that. My body acts like I'm about to be eaten by a lion. My heart races. My palms sweat. My voice disappears. It's like I'm two different people. The rational me and the terrified me. And the terrified me always wins." I asked her, "What do you do when the fear comes?" She said, "I fight it. I tell myself to calm down. I tell myself there's nothing to be afraid of. I try to push the fear away. But it doesn't work. The more I push, the stronger it gets. It's like trying to put out a fire with gasoline. This is the paradox of fear. Fighting it makes it bigger. Resisting it gives it power. The more you struggle against fear, the more real it becomes." The Buddha understood this completely. He taught that fear is like a shadow. You cannot fight a shadow. You cannot push it away. The only thing you can do is turn on the light. I said to Patricia, "The next time fear arises, do not fight it. Do not try to calm yourself down. Instead, do something completely different. Get curious about it. Become a scientist studying your own experience. Feel where it lives in your body. Is it in your chest? Your throat? Your stomach? What does it actually feel like? Is it hot or cold? Tight or trembling? Does it have a shape? Just investigate it without any agenda to make it go away." She said, "But won't that make it worse? Won't focusing on it make it bigger?" I said, "Try it and see. Fighting it makes it bigger. Resisting it makes it bigger. But observing it, that is different. When you observe something, you are no longer inside it. You are standing apart from it. And from that distance, it cannot control you." She agreed to try. The next time she had to speak to a group, she did not fight the fear. She felt her throat tighten. She felt her hands shake. And instead of panicking, she just watched. She noticed the heat in her chest. She noticed the trembling in her fingers. She noticed the thoughts racing through her mind. And she kept breathing. She kept watching. And something remarkable happened. The fear did not disappear. But it stopped being the center of her attention. It became just one sensation among many. It became background noise. And in that space, she found she could speak. Her voice was shaky at first. But she kept going. And by the end, the fear had faded to almost nothing. She came back to the temple and said, "I never knew fear could be observed. I always thought it had to be fought or fled. Those were the only options. But observing it is different. It's like the difference between being in the ocean during a storm and watching the storm from the shore. You're still seeing the same waves. But you're not drowning in them. Patricia discovered the eighth basic wisdom. Fear is not the enemy. Your relationship to fear is the problem. When you fight fear, you give it your energy. When you run from fear, you let it control your life. But when you observe fear, when you get curious about it, you take away its power. You see that it is just energy. Just sensations. Just thoughts. And energy, sensations, and thoughts cannot hurt you. They can only scare you if you believe in them. The Buddha said that a wise person regards fear like they regard a passing storm. They do not try to stop the rain. They do not argue with the thunder. They simply take shelter and wait. They know the storm will pass. It always does. Every fear eventually fades if you stop feeding it. This is true for all difficult emotions. Anger, grief, jealousy, shame. They are all just weather. They move through you if you let them. They arise, they peak, they pass away. The problem is that we don't let them. We grab onto them. We identify with them. We say, I am angry. Instead of, there is anger. The first statement traps you inside the experience. The second statement gives you space. And in that space, freedom becomes possible. So the next time a difficult emotion arises, try this. Do not fight it. Do not run from it. Do not believe its stories. Just observe it. Where is it in your body? What does it feel like? Does it change moment to moment? Stay with it. Breathe with it. Watch it like you would watch a fascinating documentary. You might discover something revolutionary. You might discover that you are not your fear. You are not your anger. You are not your grief. You are the one watching. And the one watching has never been harmed by any emotion. The one watching is always safe. The one watching is always free. We have traveled a long road together. We have kneaded the clay with the potter's apprentice. We have watched the river with Marcus the firefighter. We have learned to pause with James the teacher. We have stayed in the middle with Thomas the builder. We have observed fear with Patricia the librarian. And through all these stories, a single truth has emerged again and again. The Buddha's wisdom is not somewhere else. It is not in a cave in the Himalayas. It is not in an ancient text written in a language you cannot read. It is right here, in the smallest moments of your ordinary life. It is in the breath you are breathing right now. It is in the choice to get up when you want to stay in bed. It is in the choice to pause before you speak. It is in the choice to observe your fear instead of fighting it. The Buddha was not interested in impressing people with complicated philosophy. He was interested in one thing only, showing people how to suffer less. And he discovered that the path to less suffering is paved with small habits, not big ideas. You do not need to understand the nature of the universe. You need to understand the nature of your own mind in this moment. You do not need to meditate for hours in a cave. You need to learn how to take 3 conscious breaths between classes. This is wisdom for the rest of us. Wisdom for those who have jobs and families and responsibilities. Wisdom for those who struggle with the same old habits day after day. Wisdom for those who know they are not perfect and are tired of pretending to be. And here is the secret that makes all of this possible. You already have everything you need. You do not need to acquire anything. You do not need to become anyone else. You already have the capacity to observe your thoughts. You already have the capacity to pause before acting. You already have the capacity to breathe. These are not skills you need to learn from scratch. They are abilities you already possess. You just need to remember to use them. The Buddha called this mindfulness. But mindfulness is not some exotic state. It is simply remembering to pay attention to what is actually happening. It is remembering that you are breathing. It is remembering that you have a choice. It is remembering that the voices in your head are not commands. It is remembering that you are the sky, not the weather. There is a final story I want to share with you. It is about a woman named Grace who came to the temple near the end of her life. Grace was 92 years old. She had lived through wars and depressions and losses that would have broken most people. She had raised children and buried a husband and watched her body slowly fail. And yet, when she came to the temple, she was smiling. Someone asked her, "How do you stay so peaceful after everything you've been through?" Grace thought for a moment and then said, "I learned a long time ago that I cannot control what happens to me. But I can control how I meet it. I can meet it with fear or I can meet it with presence. I can meet it with resistance or I can meet it with curiosity. I can meet it with anger or I can meet it with love. The circumstances are not up to me. But my meeting of them is. And that, right there, is enough." Grace understood something that took most people a lifetime to learn. Freedom is not about changing your circumstances. It is about changing your relationship to your circumstances. It is about learning to meet whatever comes with wisdom and kindness and presence. It is about small habits practiced consistently over a long time. The Buddha said that the path is like a flame. It does not arrive fully formed. It starts as a small spark. Then it catches. Then it grows. Then it becomes a fire that can light 1,000 other fires. But it always begins with a single spark. A single moment of awareness. A single conscious breath. A single choice to respond rather than react. So here is my final offering to you. Take one small habit from these stories. Just one. Maybe it is the 3 breaths between tasks. Maybe it is observing your fear instead of fighting it. Maybe it is staying in the middle when you want to quit. Maybe it is just noticing that the voices in your head are not you. Take one. Just one. And practice it today. And tomorrow. And the next day. Do not worry about the big picture. Do not worry about enlightenment. Do not worry about whether you are doing it right. Just practice this one small thing, over and over, with patience and kindness and curiosity. Let it become a habit. Let it become part of who you are. And one day, you will look back and realize that this small habit has changed everything. Not because the habit itself was powerful, but because the practice of showing up, again and again, has transformed you. You have become someone who can meet life with wisdom. You have become someone who suffers less. You have become someone who is free. This is the Buddha's promise. Not that life will stop being difficult. Not that you will never feel fear or pain or loss again. But that you will learn to meet it all with a mind that is steady, a heart that is open, and a spirit that cannot be broken. And that, in the end, is enough. Thank you for walking this path with me. May your practice be steady. May your heart be at peace. And may you remember, in every moment, that you already have everything you need. This is Monk's Temple. We will talk again soon.